Hello, and welcome to Doctor Who 50 years ago. This week, The Power of the Daleks, Episode 2, again, by that wonderful man, David Whittaker. I am Ben.
I am Luke.
And I am Nick.
And here we are, and here we go, into the news. On November 6th, 1966, the Lunar Orbiter 2 was launched by the United States, going up to a height of 30 miles over the moon, and taking 609 high-resolution photographs, which of course you can do nowadays on Instagram. Meanwhile, in actually relevant news, 38 African nations passed a resolution at the OAU summit demanding that the United Kingdom use force to retake control of its former colony of Rhodesia, which of course declared unilateral declaration of independence a year earlier in 1965. With a white minority government, and proceeded to be fairly repressive. So colonies are going well there. On November 8th, there were some US midterm elections and some fairly famous people got elected to fairly famous things. There was a Republican by the name of Edward Brooke who became the first African American elected to the US Senate since a Blanche K. Bruce during the Reconstruction era a century earlier. A Mr. Ronald Reagan became governor of California. A Mr. George H.W. Bush became a representative for Texas. Spiro T. Agnew became a governor of Maryland. And Charles H. Percy, whose daughter was brutally murdered in September, which we told you, if you'd been paying attention, became a senator for Illinois.
Not only is this the era when things are changing, this is the era which the people who will change things in 20 or so years, they start to get their understanding of their offices. They get to know how things are working. This is when they're growing up and forming. And it's not only when the past is decaying away, but when it's the crucible in which the new era will be formed.
November the 11th, in war-y news, General Franco, that very nice man, issued a general pardon to all persons convicted of political crimes during the Spanish Civil War, because Spain had a wonderful time during the post-war period. And finally, back into the space, Gemini 12, the last of the Gemini manned space missions, the precursor to the Apollo program, launched with James Lovell and Buzz Aldrin, that second man to be on the moon. They went up, they went down again. And that was the news. Wasn't it interesting? And now,
Power of the Daleks, Part 2.
Part 2, Episode 2, which ramps up the tension immediately from the previous episode. Because we have this instance in the Dalek spaceship of, Daleks are evil! We must destroy them! One Dalek is needed to wipe out this entire colony. And Patrick Troughton can be all serious and worried and stuff.
Yes.
He continues his very good acting.
It is a very atmospheric opening, I'll give it that.
Yes, because that Dalek out of its casing was never seen again and is never explained.
No, but it doesn't need to be, really.
No, it was just there for cliffhanger purposes.
Yeah. But it does also have a nice little link to the Daleks, which secures this quite well in Dalek chronology, even though a Dalek out of his casing doesn't actually make any sense at this point, since they should be reliant on the casing.
Well, I guess it could be a dying Dalek, isn't it? I suppose that's probably why we never see it again, because this one Dalek died.
But what is also really good about it, it establishes that there's a threatening creature inside the Daleks. From the moment of that cliffhanger, you can't look at the Daleks as just machines.
Yeah, you're right. That's the contrast with Lesserson saying they are just machines. We know for sure that they're not.
Yes. So, thoughts on the episode?
I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I liked it also. It continues the tension as presented from the first episode and ramps it up ever so slowly in a very nice way.
I think what's interesting about this episode is that it's so focused on being a mystery story. There's a bit where Ben and Polly have a conversation and Ben says, "Motive, don't forget the motive." And this episode we've got the colony introduced. We are now moving to find out everything that we can to figure out the plots. It is the perfect time to set out the mystery and put out all the options that the story can go, which really pushes the tension, because when we know all the ways it can go, we are on the edge of our seats to figure out the way it will go.
Well, it's almost an episode 1 in respect to the previous episode that put so much time into Troughton's introduction. It had to really do okay, so you got the brief introduction of the colony, but now this is the story's introduction, really, isn't it? This episode, as you were saying.
Yeah.
All these characters, where they lie, all their conflicts between other characters.
Yeah, so it's deepening the intrigue.
Yeah.
And the Dalek in this is very, very creepy and insidious. It's quite. It's one of the best depictions of a Dalek I've ever seen, and I think it'll only get better. I hope so. It's not even doing anything. It's just its presence is enough to be creepy and scary.
It's an omnipotent menace.
Which is the music as well is amazing that they're using for it. It really adds so much terror. Well, if you were a kid at the time, it would be quite terrifying. And the Dalek is literally just sat there doing nothing.
Part of that is because we are aware of the creature inside it. We have the fear of the creature.
Yeah, we know it's this horrible, hateful-looking creature. It isn't a nice thing inside there.
No. Let's look at this episode in further detail. Right. So, that mysterious creature disappears. They go to find a torch and rant about the Daleks some more, about how they are evil, and how Troughton is utterly, utterly right, and how he's not going to be listened to for the next 5 episodes. Because there are other characters who are more concerned about themselves. Including the conflict between Quinn and Bragan over basically power over this demented and not really going very well colony. See police state from the last episode. They're busy looking for the Examiner to use him for the Doctor, to use him for their own ends. Mainly because of the murder mystery of the real Examiner in episode 1. We're going back to the button.
Yes.
That Quinn has lost and really should have gotten a better jacket from. But never mind. This is a colony. They don't have manufacturing things. But yes, Lesterson has the 3rd Dalek, and for the benefit of science, he is going to find out what this Dalek is, apart from being given evidence by the Examiner that they're evil. The Doctor tries to go over his head to the Governor, but the Governor is busy doing governing things, or at least attempting to do governing things. He could be doing something else, for all I know and care. And so the Doctor is left to brood the night, whilst Lesterson does evil things with the Dalek, like giving him power.
This is when we get one of the what I would consider a very doctory trait, which is when he goes on his Lesterson listen. It's a good workout for the tongue rant, and he's just distracted in the face of danger, going on about nothing, and then it turns out that it's actually because he thinks there's a bug in there. And it's that brilliant blend of being sort of not really caring, seeming that way, and being humorous, but then having something brilliant underneath it.
Establishing Troughton would be very different from Hartnell, because he'd never do this sort of jokey, playing the fool like Troughton would.
He's using his youthful, vigourful portrayal to his advantage to revolutionise the character. Yeah. Politics was using the Governor to either destroy the Daleks, the morally good aspect, or to do other things, whatever the hell. Meanwhile, the Dalek is being experimented on. It is literally being given power, title drop, by scientists.
The battery of the Daleks.
Now I'm just seeing horrible things with the Duracell rabbit with a Dalek. I don't want to know. No, thank you.
You will not escape up the mountain. Elevate! Destroy the body!
We are your butchers.
We will create robo-buddies. Robo-buddies will build the spaceship and hollow the Earth's core.
We will invade Teletubby Land.
How do you get these transmitters on your stomachs? Are they linked to the Doctor?
And back to the episode.
So yes, this is the wonderful bit where Resno easily recognises that this evil-looking pepper pot is evil, and the Dalek recognises that fact, and basically does his first oh no, I need more power, please help me, that kind of thing.
Begging.
I really like is how this is shot, where you see it from the Dalek's perspective, and you see the kind of horror on Resno's face as he realises it's watching him,
And from that, he makes the correct scientific conclusion that something inside is watching him,
and it's
that it has an intelligence.
It is intelligent, and that's what's eerie about it. It's not letting you. It's not being open, that's what's creepy.
It's completely closed. It completely has ideas of its own, and unfortunately, those ideas are kill, kill, kill.
So, from the POV, we see it coming to life. This is at once foreboding, but also grim, because we see this dead-looking Dalek being wheeled around. It's sort of demeaning towards the Dalek. The colony is trying to bring out their own destruction by meddling in things they don't fully understand against the advice of those with superior knowledge. Later, even though one of them gets blasted with the Dalek gun, Janley says this might just give the examiners the excuse they want. So even though it is being stared in the face, don't meddle with this. Everyone in authority who knows what they're doing is saying, don't meddle with this. The scientists are still saying, we need to go through with this. In the pre-war period, Britain was essentially the king of invention during the Victorian era. We were brilliant. And then when we went into the Second World War, it was our inventions, like radar, which really pushed us into having that upper edge over the U-boat peril. Britain was second only to the US in Nobel Prize Chemistry Awards since 1933, and for a country which has no money and no population, this is comparatively brilliant. There was this thing called the National Research Developments Corporation. That was set up by the Development of Inventions Department Act of 1948, and in that year they got £5 million from the government, but by 1967 they got £25 million, which is an insane amount of money. 15,000 inventions were submitted during this time, and patent licenses issued for roughly 900. So this is massive, and it's around this time that it's peaking. And out of that, you got hovercrafts, computers which could control and construct ships, and
Photon!
and
I
various
knew it!
various antibiotics. And by 1969, they were making profits actually. Because £1.5 million of its income was from foreign royalties. And in around 1968, they managed to perfect recycling enough so that they could produce NPK fertilizer, which revolutionised agriculture. So
what we're seeing in this is sort of a reflection of the independent mindedness of British science. But here they're just going a step too far. Whilst scientists should be allowed to be independent, you should give them some oversight.
Yes.
Which they're not being given adequate enough oversight here.
Yeah. The colony who are going too far and they're meddling with that great empire, but also you've got the scientists who believe that they're too big and that nothing can stop them.
The mystery deepens because all radio contact with Earth has been cut off by a mysterious saboteur with a large pair of shears, which, okay, why do you have shears on Vulcan? But apparently it's Quinn, Deputy Governor, because he wants to be Governor, apparently, or maybe not, or maybe he wants some things, or maybe not. This goes on for some time, whilst the Dalek does Dalek-y things.
In the 60s, since mystery and crime dramas were so big, I imagine the people of the 60s would really take to this motive, don't forget the motive sort of aspect of the sort of story.
We've come a long way from the smugglers 9 weeks ago.
Yes.
Yeah, this is something actually enjoyable and invigorating.
Yeah, and then we finally get back to the Daleks, and so the Dalek actually shoots Resno, but then they wisely pull out the gun because, it's armed, let's take it out the gun.
Yeah.
But then they decide to keep experimenting, and I think this is where
it all falls apart for this colony because Janley sees the opportunity of this Dalek for her own political ends. So there's the wonderful self-interest going on. But Lesterson is an idiot in that he doesn't actually check up on Resno to see if he's actually intact. He merely takes the words of Janley, who he knows is politically affiliated with rebels, and really should have put two and two together for a scientist.
I sort of see the relationship between Janley and Lesterson as sort of a metaphor for Lesterson is the aloof conservative professor at some stuffy university,
but with anxiety issues, and is being led by Janley.
And Janley is the student who's very lefty liberal, perhaps, well, not even liberal necessarily, like revolutionary, I guess is more accurate.
Yeah.
And she's got her own ideas of what she wants to do, and he's kind of a bit aloof to what his students are doing. He can't really control her, like much like in the 60s, students were going out of control with protests and whatever.
Or it might be maybe the case of he doesn't care what she does because he feels that in the end he is the superior one, and she couldn't possibly do anything to overthrow him.
Well, there you go.
There you get generational conflict.
There's generational conflict, and then just the arrogance of the person those who are already in power, thinking that they are unassailable. So I think this is what this is reflecting, the sort of conflicts that was occurring on campuses around the world, well, in the West anyway.
The fear of the maintenance of power could arguably be seen in either the governor or in Bragan, because they definitely assume that Quinn has damaged the communications room in order to pull off a coup and become governor himself. So once again, we're talking about power and all that lovely stuff. And then the two different subplots dovetail beautifully into the cliffhanger. Quinn is put into an inquiry for his actions and what he's doing, and the Doctor's involved in that. And there's some horrible joke by Ben. He's in two minds, and two bodies.
And in 50 years ago, the podcast.
And in 50 years ago, the podcast. Link here. For the own thing you're already watching. Anyway, meanwhile, Lesterson and Janley have seemingly prepared the Dalek to do everything for them, and basically gate crashed the inquiry to say, look what we've done, it's so good. And the Doctor's like, no, this is very, very bad. And
then you get the line, I am your servant.
Yes, the Dalek surprises them all with intelligence and the ability to talk.
But also those words coming from a Dalek's mouth, and we, the audience, I guess there's dramatic irony here, is that the colonists will take this at face value, but we, the audience, know that is wrong, and we are now afraid for the colony.
And the thing is, the Doctor accepts that it's wrong, and ultimately this is the point where the Doctor becomes the Doctor, because the Daleks recognise him.
Yes.
Because that's the first thing it sees in that room. It's the new Doctor, but he knows what it is. And it almost gives away the fact that it is evil and it is malignant so many times in this episode, killing Resno, recognising the Doctor, and in other spaces throughout the episode. But the colonists are so preoccupied with how it can benefit them that they'll give it anything it wants.
And what is so chilling is that it is willing to claim that it is being a servant when you know that it really has all intentions of killing them all.
Yeah.
It's just how that is what's
It
chilling.
is the Daleks at their most intelligent and at their most cunning, as we have already said.
Yes.
I feel this is a good time to discuss how this would be done nowadays with reference to Victory of the Daleks, because this is when we have two very important elements of the more Dalek story half of Victory, which is the Dalek servant and the Dalek recognising the Doctor.
Yes. And so, reiterating that into Matt Smith's 11th Doctor would be good, because, let's face it, he probably had some trouble in Series 5 taking over the mantra from David Tennant, the omnipotent god that he is. We're not bitter. And,
It's not nearly expanded upon as it is here in the Victory of the Daleks. They do that for about 10 minutes, and then suddenly, it doesn't matter that they were pretending to be servants or anything, straight on to them being Daleks again. But here...
It's the problems of trying to fit it into a 45-minute format and trying to establish your Doctor in a 45-minute format.
But here it's building it very slowly. If you're going to do this sort of story, you have to do it slowly and build it up to ramp up the tension. But
and not
Victory,
just suddenly inject it into episodes where it really isn't needed.
Yeah.
What's interesting about Victory is that it sets up some new Daleks. We don't care so much about the new Daleks as we do about the new Doctor, especially in that opening shot where it is very much the Power Rangers hero shot. We don't care so much about what the new Daleks look like as we do the new Doctor. Our investment in the story and where it's going, if you've watched it Victory more than once, you can't get into it. Whereas with Power of the Daleks, you know it's all leading somewhere. And so when the Daleks recognise the Doctor in Victory of the Daleks, even though it's more of a plot point in the episode, it means nothing because of its placement within the series. Even though it's episode 3, the Doctor's been well enough established, it's just another thing. Whereas here, it's placed beautifully.
Yeah, because all throughout the first 2 episodes of this serial, we're being told, or Ben keeps saying, this isn't the real Doctor. And in fact, I mean, initially Troughton didn't even refer to himself as the Doctor. He referred to Hartnell as the Doctor. So, but now that the Dalek knows this is the Doctor,
that's confirmation enough to the audience at home who know about the Daleks and what they entail.
Yeah.
And so that the continuity is established. Ultimately, there is this Dalek-Doctor connection that helps firmly establish the series and Patrick Troughton as the second Doctor. There we are, folks. It's all come together rather nicely and will hopefully continue that way. Thank you very much for watching. You can find us on Blogspot, which redirects to iTunes. We're also on Facebook and other internety things. Possibly Google+. It doesn't really matter, though.
We don't like to talk about that.
No, it's a weird thing. I won't touch it with a barge pole. No, thank you. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I have been Ben.
I've been Luke.
And I've been Nick.
Thank you, and goodbye.